Hey guys, it's the Diesel Queen. Welcome to my Overhauled podcast. I have to make an apology to you guys. My first few podcasts were a little screwed up. Long story short, it had to be kind of cropped down a little bit because I am technologically challenged. Back to how I am a heavy equipment mechanic, not a professional YouTuber or a podcaster. So please bear with my fuck ups and enjoy these podcasts. Again, I apologize. I'm a heavy equipment mechanic trying to make podcasts, so bear with me. Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Overhauled with the Diesel Queen, aka Melissa Petersmann, partnering with Diesel Laptops to be able to bring you this season of podcasts. Today I am here with a young lady who hasn't even graduated high school yet, but she is very driven to be a diesel mechanic, and she has got some incredible questions and questions that I believe a lot of my young viewers have as well. These are very similar to a lot of questions I get all the time on social media. So I'm so excited to be able to bring you guys this episode specifically to be able to answer hopefully a lot of the questions of young diesel mechanics, especially women that are wanting to enter the industry. Not just for women though, a lot of these questions apply to anybody who wants to enter the industry. So let's get it. This is the Diesel Queen on the Overhauled podcast. This is episode 2, and with me today I have a young lady that I have actually spoken to in person when I worked at a shop in Wyoming. She is wanting to become a diesel mechanic, and I thought she would be perfect for this podcast because she has a lot of great questions that I think a lot of other people have too. So why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Ilsa, and like you said, I got to meet you last year. I'm really interested in diesel mechanics. I've been into mechanicking my whole life, but it's always been gas and small engines. I want to go bigger, and I'm in high school right now, so I'm going to try and take some classes to be able to do that. I'm going to try and go to a trade school and work as a diesel mechanic and then just see where that path takes me.
So do you have a specific brand or type of machinery, or what do you want to do? Do you want to do light duty diesel or semis or equipment? What's kind of your goal there as far as your career?
I was really thinking heavy duty diesel, especially after I met you and saw the shop. That was like the atmosphere I want to work in.
The heavy equipment?
Trucks would be cool, but like whenever I think of diesel trucks, it makes me think of like my older brother and how I'd have to deal with a bunch of teenage boys, and I'm not really down with that. So I'll probably want to work on like heavier equipment and maybe semis, but probably stick with like belly scrapers, graders, stuff like that.
That's a smart choice. That's where a lot of the money is. So tell me a little bit about your background and because I get asked this all the time, so it's your turn to get tortured with this question.
Okay.
What got you into this? What entices you or, attracts you to this industry?
A couple things. Definitely my grandpa is one of them. He was always a heavy equipment operator, but he could never work on anything. So he was like Mr. Maintenance is what we called him. But I'm going to try and like kind of live up his legacy because he was super cool and he knew how to run everything that had a bucket, tracks, wheels, anything. He just couldn't work on it. So I'm going to be able to work on it and run it, hopefully. And he passed away a couple years ago. So like I said,
sorry to hear that.
Live that on. It's all right. Also, I'm attracted to like the feminine going into more masculine fields. Mm-hmm. We talked about this when we were together that like there's just not enough women in these fields, and it interests me anyway, so I might as well just go for it and hopefully lead the way for somebody else, inspire somebody else, and I just hope to make it like have more women in this field because it's such a cool field, and I don't want people of any type to be excluded from it. And it's so cool. I love to like wrench on everything. So.
And as you know, what going off of kind of that, women in the industry thing, you're a small girl, just like I was. I weighed 115 pounds when I started in this industry, like soaking wet 115 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's something that I believe you and I talked about is you don't have to be the big burly guy in the shop to work on equipment, and I commend you for, kind of diving head first into this industry, because that's kind of what I did. I wrenched with some of my friends, and my dad was a logger, so I got to be around all the equipment, and I just dove head fucking first into this and prayed it was going to work. So I commend you for that, because it takes a lot of bravery to do that, especially at your age, because there's a lot of people your age that don't even know what they want to do with their life. So the fact that you've got a direction that's pretty cool. So what trade school are you thinking about going to, and what is your expectation of that trade school? What do you think you're going to get out of it?
I have two, because you put Wyotech in my head. So I was pretty set on going to the John Deere Diesel School in Nebraska. That's where my brother's going, and I've been talking to him about it a little bit, and he likes it. He's had some of his dad's coworkers have gone there, really liked it. You put Wyotech in my head, and I'm not really sure. I can't decide on which one, but it's a little far down the road. So,
well, do you want to work on deer? Is that kind of your?
I think
Wyotech has a heavy equipment course now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really I'm not really biased to any brand right now. Deer would be probably the ideal to work on from what we talked about when I was there. But I'm really not that particular about anything. So I'm leaning towards the school in Nebraska, but we'll see. I don't know. I've got 2 years before I'm even out of high school, so.
I think I mentioned this to you when you were in Wyoming with me, but I'm just going to mention it again for the people listening, that there is, and this is not just John Deere. I speak of John Deere because I worked for them and I know them. I'm familiar with how they do things. But there's a lot of companies and brands on heavy equipment that will pay you to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
They will sponsor you, they will pay you to go to school, and then John Deere has an incentive program and an apprenticeship program where you will actually get a starter set of tools for free. As long as, obviously there's a contract where, you're stuck to that dealership for a couple of years, or, if you leave, you have to give the tools back. But I mean, shit, for starting out, that's a pretty decent deal. Like Wyotech used to offer, I don't know if they still do, 50% off tools, and then they run a credit loan to help get people started. So we talked about this briefly, and I wanted to save some of this for this podcast. What is some of your hesitations or fears or questions that you have about entering the industry? And this doesn't have to necessarily pertain to just being a girl. Any question that you have, or worries or concerns that you would like to address?
Definitely being small, just physically small in the industry. Because we talked about if you need to move something, you need a lift or you need a guy to come help you most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I already struggle with that. My dad is in the shop with me most of the time, so him or one of his meathead guys will come help me. But I try and do everything on my own, what I can, and for most of my stuff I can, which is nice, but that's small engines versus heavy equipment diesel. So definitely being small is one of my worries. I have also I like to learn a lot, but I'm nervous about failing with life, everything in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be good at everything the first time, and that's not going to happen. So
I was the same way.
I need to learn how to fail and be okay with it. That's probably going to be my biggest struggle above everything else, is just not being perfect at everything. Just like, yeah, failure, struggle, stuff like that's going to put me down for a little bit. And that's why I asked you the motivation question, because like, if you get beat down so many times, it's going to be hard to stay motivated. So,
yep. And I'm going to address both those questions because I fucking love those questions. So the first question is being small. A lot of people, especially when they start on automotive, which I did too. I was just like you. I started working on pickups, and that's kind of where, yeah, my dad had equipment, but I never actually got my hands dirty in it. It's automotive is hard because the parts are small, but people think that heavy equipment is going to be harder because the parts are bigger, but in reality, it's easier a lot of times because the big 250-pound muscle guy in the shop's not lifting what most of this shit. So you're going to use a crane or some kind of lifting device. Most dealerships are very big about safety and not trying to break your back lifting something. So there is a lot of tools and resources for that. And a lot of times, if you have to ask for help lifting something in the shop, there's a 98% chance that the guy next to you would have had to ask for help too. It's
true. That's true.
I mean, there are extremes. I have watched a male technician use a crane for a 10-pound water pump. But,
I would have laughed. I'm not going to lie. I would have laughed.
I did. But it's a shop atmosphere, so you give him shit for it for a week, right? And then you move on to the next fuck up that somebody did to give him shit for it. It's the being small thing you don't have to worry about. I was 115 pounds when I started in this industry, and I weigh like 132 pounds now, but does it help being a little bit stronger? Like now that I put on some muscle, a little, but honestly, still the 99% of the shit that I struggled with before, I struggle with now, and I use cranes or lifting devices, whatever.
Yeah. I already use we have a small in-shop engine hoist, and I use that for a lot of things. So I use that, and Dad, like I said, is almost always with me, and he's got a lot more muscle than I have. I'm already working out to try and get that muscle because, I'm struggling. So we're going to try and make that better for myself.
So yeah, if you're trying to gain muscle, just eat.
Yeah.
Eat. If you're
like you said, I'm probably 100 pounds soaking wet, and I'm 5'3" on my permit, but
you're going to be a hard gainer. You're going to be a hard gainer just like me. So you're going to have to work out 3 days a week if you really actually want to gain muscle, and then just fucking carb load.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
So your second question was about being scared of failing. And I love this question because I was the exact same way. I wanted to be good at everything. I wanted to be the best I could be. And when I fucked something up, it was the end of the world. And, I fucked up quite a bit my first few years in this industry. And I tell everybody this, nobody is God's gift to the planet. Everybody starts out somewhere. You learn from your mistakes. And the first year and a half, you're going to question your life choices because it's going to seem like it's not going to be this way, but it's going to feel like everything you touch, you fuck up. And that's okay, because the only mistakes that are truly mistakes are ones you don't learn from. Everybody learns from mistakes. That's how you learn as a mechanic, is you fuck it up and then you don't do that again. And I was really hard on myself. I actually had my first boss, which he's actually going to be on this podcast later in the month. My first boss used to tell me when I fucked up, he would come up to me and he'd be like, you know what, Melissa? I would scold you and get mad at you and try to punish you for this, but you are harder on your fucking self than I'm going to be. So I'm just going to let you beat yourself up. And it sounds like that's probably going to be you for the first few years. And it's fine. Trust me.
You'll get through fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. About year 3 is when you finally start to bridge that gap and cross over that line of, I know what I'm doing most of the time. I understand how the systems work. I understand the diagnostic procedures. I understand how to use the software. And I understand this was always the rule that I was taught with asking for help, is you exhaust all your resources before you ask for help. So that means, you look at the machine, you look at the computer, you read the theory of operation, you try to run the diagnostic procedures on the computer. But my dog, if it takes, like with asking for help with like lifting things or whatever you're taking, especially if you're taking something apart or you need help lining up pins in an excavator, if it takes 15 minutes with help or 2 hours without help, what's better for the customer at that point? Because they're paying you by the hour. Exactly.
With help, so obviously, and that's wasting less of your time.
Exactly. So, that's one thing if you've got, and trust me, you're going to feel like this for the first couple of years, is when you have someone, what we call babysitting you, where they're like, you have to have help with every single little thing that you're doing, which, trust me, you're not going to like this, but sometimes you will need that in the first few years, especially. But, that's kind of where you get put with somebody that's designed to train you. They're made to train you. They're there to train you. And usually don't worry about customers getting charged too much or whatever the case may be, or ruining somebody else's job time when you start in the industry. Because usually if the shop is set up correctly, they will put your extra time and that other tech's time on training. So that's all. It doesn't affect anybody's proficiency. So it creates a good environment to where you can feel like you can ask for help. And you're going to need it, and you're probably going to be like me, where you're going to like struggle for a lot until you ask for help, but that's okay. That's how you learn too.
Yeah. I get babysat though, like constantly right now. So
everybody
just struggle for a little bit.
The problem is when you're 40 and getting babysat by somebody else. That's the problem. And I'm not saying 40 like just started in the industry. I'm saying like I've been in the field for 30 years and so I still have to have somebody babysit me. That's where the problem is. If you need help and you need advice, and I don't think you're gonna have to worry about the getting babysat thing, because I don't think you're gonna allow that. No. Whether you need it or not. Is there anything that I didn't cover or anything that you wanted to expand on out of those questions?
I want to talk about, like, a couple weeks ago when I asked you about how do you keep motivation. Mm-hmm. I would love to go over that.
Okay. Yes. You did already ask me that too, and I had a brain fart. How do you keep motivation? So for me personally, I prided myself very much on the industry that I picked, and I prided myself on wanting to be the best mechanic that I could be. So, it's hard. It does get hard sometimes when you're like, I don't know if I made the right choice. I suck at life. I'm fucking everything up. What do I do? And the best thing you can do is just keep showing up and keep being a good employee and keep trying. Most of these employers, especially when you're just starting out, they don't care if you fuck shit up. They know you're going to fuck shit up. Obviously, you're going to be like me and you're going to beat yourself over it anyways, but all they want out of you is for you to show up and to try. And as long as you're showing up and you're trying, you will make it as you'll make it, and you will go far with that, because even that, just that showing up and trying and putting in an effort is rare. And if you're beaten down to the point where you're like, man, I don't know if this was the right choice, I'm messing stuff up, just remember that is, as long as you're trying and you're showing up, that's what matters. And if your employer does not value those things, well, then they can go search the sea of live bodies and try to find somebody else your age that actually wants to show up to work, and good luck with that. And it's you and your generation, you are in a generation right now that is worse than mine, believe it or not. And
yeah, I know, don't worry.
But you have the ability to prove all these people wrong, and yeah, you might fuck shit up and you might be losing motivation, but just remember that you are one of the very, very few people in your generation, and you're a female, and you are still showing up and you are still trying. And that will go very far, especially with the problem of there are not enough mechanics for this industry right now. Mm-hmm. So, I think you'll be fine. And obviously, if you are having problems, you can always call me and be like, Melissa, I fucked up. How do I stop fucking up? And I'm just going to tell you, learn from it and don't do it again. So
yeah,
it's as long as, like I said, mistakes are only mistakes if you do it again. Story time. You want to hear some of my fuck ups? This might make you feel
better. I'd love to.
But here's another thing that I'm going to kind of entwine with these stories is the expectation that you should have when you enter the industry. It doesn't matter if you go to tech school. It does not matter if you rebuild engines in tech school. Obviously, tech school gets you into a level 1 position, not an apprentice position, but you will not be rebuilding engines straight out of the gate. You will not be doing big jobs straight out of the gate. You might be assisting other technicians with those jobs, but you will not be doing them. Your first solid year is probably going to be services, PDIs, which are pre-delivery inspections for new machines, which is a great way to learn machines. That's going to be the majority, batteries, things like that. That's going to be the majority of your work. And you will fuck that up too, don't worry. And it's the first excavator I did a service on, I forgot to vent the tank. On the top, there's like a little push button that vents the air pressure out of the tank. I forgot to do that. I was crawling up underneath the excavator, and I had this little 55-gallon drum cut into a little tote, which was not near big enough for the amount of oil in this hydraulic tank. I did not know that at the time. I pulled the plug out. There's 2 plugs. There's one facing down and one facing up. The one facing at my face. The one facing at my face seemed a lot easier to remove at the time. So I'm all proud of myself because I found a shortcut, right? I'm all proud of myself. So I'm over there undoing this fitting. The second it got loose from those last threads, I got a face full of hydraulic oil instantly, drenched me head to toe, and filled up the bucket I had immediately. So I'm over there with the fucking hydraulic plug, trying to put it back in as it's spraying in my face. And my boss walks up as I'm in the middle of getting drenched in oil, trying to put the plug back in the tank. That was fun. I also forgot to put metal caps into brake lines on a loader. And long story short, I woke up there. I came in that weekend, after the weekend, with 18 bags of floor dry sitting on my toolbox. You know why? Because my little plastic caps came out and drained the entire hydraulic tank onto the floor. Like it was a lake. It covered my entire bay floor, went all the way outside, all the way to the fence. And my boss that had come in on the weekend found it and dumped floor dry on the stuff outside and then put all the shit on I spent like 3 hours cleaning that. So that's some of my fuck ups. I also have done the first couple of years. I had an excavator I was putting a breaker on, and it had a mechanical coupler. And you're going to learn this if you work in the equipment industry. It is a rarity on large excavators to have a manual coupler. This one had that. It had some seize problems, but at the moment, my focus was getting new hoses built for it because sales can be cheap sometimes, and we were trying to make it work. This was like $1,000 worth of new hoses, by the way. I put the new hoses on this excavator, and it took like a week to get these hoses in. I had completely fucking forgot about the coupler. Completely fucking forgot about it. But the breaker's hooked on it. It's just not locked. So I drive this. I'm all proud of myself. I got my hoses on. I topped off the hydraulic oil. I'm all proud of myself. I walked this excavator over to the test area where we have like little pieces of metal that you can run the breaker on. Well, the second that hit straight up and down, I dropped that freaking breaker off the top of the excavator, ripped all of the $1,000 worth of hoses off that machine, and it was spraying oil everywhere. I mean, it was gushing oil out of the auxiliary lines right in front of a salesman and a customer, by the way. Those are just 3 examples of hundreds. So trust me, when you start in the industry and you're fucking shit up, I promise you I've probably fucked it up too. If you call me and you're like, I just put an axle back together and the lock washer for the bolt to the finals is sitting on the table, I'm going to be like, yep, did that. I've done that. I've been the mechanic that gets all proud of myself, and I assemble something. I'm like, oh my God, this was so easy. This was so nice. I'm a rock star. And then the part is sitting on the table and I have to completely disassemble it again. We've all been there. So and you're going to get given shit because it's a shop. Everybody shit talks, but just make sure you give it back to them.
Oh yeah, I got that going for me already. We're good. I did have one more question for you.
What?
I had one more question for you though.
Yeah, go for it. We're all questions, so there is no time limit on this. So go for it.
So we talked. I think it was when I was with you. You had said, "Oh, I'm fine with being a shop princess versus an in-field mechanic," and I want to like talk to you about that because I want to like. I think what I want to do is be in shop for the first while I'm messing things up, and then I want to do some in-field stuff because that's what I kind of like. That interests me a lot, and like
right.
Working directly with the people interests me.
And that is my personal desires. I love the shop because you and I both know how shitty winters are up there. We are not joking when we're like, oh yeah, it's like -40 wind chill outside and everything is gelled and nothing will start. I prefer not to deal with that. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I don't mind field work in the summers. I've always worked, every location I've ever worked has me doing some form of load some shit into the back of the parts truck and go look at this. Or go, I did some field calls with other field mechanics because in Wyoming, if you have 18 hours worth of services to do in one day, you send another mechanic with that field truck when it's 4 hours away. So you don't have to make 2 trips. I've done that and I don't mind it. I don't mind it when it's good weather, but I prefer the shop because you're not going to do engine rebuilds in the field.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you get to pull the engine, take it back to the shop, rebuild it, and then bring it back. That doesn't usually happen. You're probably not going to be doing axles, engines, any kind of big major work, usually. Just for the fact that a lot of these components are very important and they're very susceptible to damage from dirt, and especially internal engine work. You can't have dirt getting in anything. I don't even like to use floor dry when I have an engine apart. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If it is outside of the machine, oil pans off, whatever, timing covers off, I do not use floor dry. I might use pig mats, but if I don't have pig mats, I will let that oil sit on the floor until I'm completely done with the job before I put floor dry on it because I don't want the dust getting inside my engine. And the same concept goes to working on something in the field. And you know how Wyoming especially is, and Colorado, it's dusty in the summer times. And it's not effective, and it's not cost effective to do large jobs in the field. Yeah. That is part of the reason why I chose to stay in the shop. And I use Shop Princess or Shop Queen just because You know how many times I've gotten shit for that, and they're like, "You just want to be a shop princess." I'm like, "Yep, damn right I do. I'm fine with
Pretty
that. While
much.
you're out there suffering, I'm gonna be in here doing engine work." So
I'm glad we're on the same page about this, buddy. Like,
yep.
wow. Yeah. I don't know. I want to do like, because like my situation right now is we do plowing, we do small engines, we do like the occasional fix and flip car situation thing. So like I do a lot more out in the field stuff with plowing, like a permanent temporary fix is usually what happens.
Yep.
And I enjoy that a lot, but like you said, the 40 like below 40-degree wind chill and like in the cold I don't do well. I've got like body fat percentage of like 8. So, I just wear my full Carhartts, hoodie, long johns, like all the whole 9 yards. And it usually gets me by, but it's pretty tough all day. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, a mix of it would be nice.
Most shops that I've worked at, if it is really super cold, they try not to send field mechanics out. That is completely dependent on the shop you work in, though. And some shops don't care. Some will just send you out anyways. You are a lot like me, where you have no insulation at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cold is something I've always struggled with too. So that's, in the summer though, honestly, if you choose a field mechanic route in the summer, like spring and fall and summer, you're gonna fucking love it, because it is nice to be out there. I've got a sick ass picture from one of the field calls I did on an excavator when I worked for Hanan, that's got like the whole, like, what the sunsets look like there. It's got the sunsets with the service truck and the excavator. I loved it. It was a great day. It was one of my favorite calls I've ever done. But you got to be there. There's 2 types of mechanics. There's mechanics that are made for the shop, and there's mechanics that are made for the field. And whatever path you choose to take is fine. There is no right answer to that. It's whatever you enjoy best. And if you start doing shop work and you want to stay in the shop, great. If you want to get out in the field, I get that. Go for it. Especially when it's nice. I want to get the fuck out of the shop too. So, it's whatever you choose to do will be fine. And the nice thing about this industry is there are people everywhere screaming to hire you. So if you're stuck in a truck and you want to be in the shop, there's a shop down the road that will hire you yesterday. If you don't, if you want to get in a truck and whoever you're working for won't let you get in a truck, which you're probably never going to run into, because there's going to be a mechanic shortage in all positions of pretty much every shop you work in. But hypothetically speaking, there's a shop down the road that will more than happily hire you in a truck. So whatever you choose, try it, go for it, try it, see how it works for you. I've known a lot of field mechanics that are really fucking good mechanics. So I've known field mechanics that absolutely love it, and they avoid the shop like the plague. So it's completely up to you.
I like a mix of both for sure. I have one more question though, for like more like the other audience than me.
Okay.
Because we talked about it, but I think it's important for viewers, like especially younger girls, to like realize is we talked about it pretty in depth about if there is a shop that's hiring, they will probably hire you because they need to either fill a gap of gender, whatever, and there's also a shop that'll hire you for your skills. And you told me some really great advice about don't get hired because you feel like a gender gap, get hired because of your skills. And I think that that's going to be like something that a lot of upcoming mechanics have to think about, because now that we're really like shops are really realizing that we're having these gaps, we need to.
You can keep talking. You're good.
We need to realize that like there's gonna be more hires because you fill a gap rather than you're good at what you do, unless you're really good at what you do. So like be the best at what you do is my best advice for that. But I know you had some other things you wanted to say about that.
And I told you that story because that had actually happened to me at one point in time where, I mean, I have no proof that I was actually hired as the wage gap, but I had the story that I'm going to try to tell, as long as my camera doesn't shut off. I had a boss at one point in time that I'm not going to name names, not going to name companies, but I got hired on in the shop, and I had a few capstones, about 3 years of experience. So, you know, it made sense. I felt like it made sense for them to hire me. They hired me on. I felt really great about it for about a year. Then I get pulled into my boss's office, and he's like, I need to ask you something. I'm like, okay, what's that? And he's like, well, I have a female applicant. And I'm like, because we were trying to hire a combine mechanic. And I'm like, okay, and what's your point? And he's like, well, I stalked her on social media, which bosses do that, by the way. People think this is not just if you're a girl. Bosses will stalk your social medias. Just saying. They want to know who they're hiring. So just be careful with that. He's like, well, she seems legit or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but why am I getting included in this conversation? And he's like, well, she's a girl. And I'm like, I still don't understand why I'm getting included in this. I'm like, what other applicants do you have? And he's like, well, I have one that's a guy that has no tools. This girl straight out of trade school. Or we have this guy in Indiana that wants to move out here who has 3 years of experience working on combines. And I'm like, okay, so I'm confused as to where the question is. Yeah. You have a guy that has certifications and experience and worked at a John Deere dealership who is moving out here. Like, what's the question? And I remember telling you this is he told me, he's like, well, in our company, we are trying to close the gap between how many females we have in here. And we want to be more diverse. And that just hit a nerve, because it does not matter if you are a male or a female or he, they, them, their, whatever, does not matter. If you have the certifications and you are good at what you do, you should be hired over somebody else that does not. Unless you're just a shitty person and the boss doesn't think they can get along with you, I would understand that. But in this scenario, I told him, I'm like, I don't understand what the question is. Why? That's not okay. And I looked at him, I told him, like, so is that why you hired me? Was I a tax writer for you guys? You know, I've always had that joke, but this is the first time it's become a reality for me. You know, that's making me question your value in me. Do you see value in, this is the same company that tried to put my face all over everything, by the way. Do you value me because I'm a blonde chick in the shop? Or do you value me because I have capstones and certifications and I know what I'm doing? And for the most part, I'm an okay mechanic. Mm-hmm. And obviously at that point in time, I had proven myself and I got big jobs and he trusted me with work. But what was the original reason I was hired? And that struck a nerve, because I want equality in this industry. And that means equality. Not only hiring,
not quality with boobs. It's just quality.
Exactly. And that's what people always ask me, and this is a touchy subject to cover, is people always ask me, what about the sexism in the field? And I'm like, oh, there is, but it's not the sexism you think it is. Yeah. Most of the time. It is not, they don't think you can do it because you're a woman. It is not that. Most of the time it's, they think you're God's gift to the planet, and you are automatically given a lot more rights, let's say, benefits from being a woman. And, honestly, there's not that many shops that will do that, but it's something to keep an eye out for. And if you find yourself in a situation where you really want to work in the shop, but you're kind of getting that feeling of, am I just a tax? Am I just a diversity number for them? But you want to work there? Go for it. Prove them exactly why you're not just a diversity number. Yeah. Prove to them that you're not that. This is why you're not a diversity number. Prove to them that you can hold your own with the guys, and you don't have to be treated differently, because it's going to take women in the industry showing that we don't have to be treated differently, and we can be treated the same as men, with the exception that we want our own bathrooms, guys.
Yes, thank you.
We want our own bathrooms. The first
Thank
shop I
you.
worked in did not have separate bathrooms, and that sucked.
Ooh,
It wasn't like a stall bathroom, so that's fine. It was just a single, like, but still.
Thanks. No,
Yeah, no
it
thanks.
stinks. It's so
We
horrible.
that's all we want. If a girl mechanic is asking you for anything else besides just a bathroom of her own, I mean, there are some legitimate complaints, and I've seen and heard some cases of there was actual negative sexism. You know, there is, I'm not going to say that's not out there, but, you know, people want to hire women mechanics. People want to do that. So the only advice I have to give is I don't necessarily think you can avoid that, because you're never going to know if you're, but what you can do is prove through your work and showing up that you were worth hiring, even if you were a man. And that's what I think, that's what I tried to do, you know, and I want every single interview I have walked into, I have had to explain to people that I am not going to be a HR nightmare. You know, the way I handle things is, if I cannot solve it between myself and my boss, I do not need to work here.
Yeah.
And that's completely up to you on how you handle that. There are some, if you are getting harassed and your boss won't fix it, this is how I see it, that does not need to be your boss anymore. But it's also not a reason to not report that if you feel like you are in danger or you feel like this is a problem, a major problem. So, but I trust that you know that line between these people are joking and this is just fun, and this is not fun, this is not okay, this is crossing a line. It's okay to have lines and it's okay to have boundaries. You know, I've had my ass slapped before. One time, and that guy bought me burritos for a fucking week. There's lines with everything, and set your boundaries, set your lines. And if somebody keeps crossing that, if you feel like you have to go to HR, I'm not telling you not to. I'm just telling you my point of view on using HR as a resource. Your boss should be able to do anything. And I had a scenario that I did not report that to my boss, because that problem solved itself, because that guy felt so bad about it. And he spent 3 weeks apologizing to me every morning and bringing me burritos. But there was a scenario that happened when I was at a training, different shop. And this guy that I was going to the training with did try to make some moves, and my phone thinks I'm talking to it, did try to make some moves. I'm a strong personality, so I have no problem telling someone to fuck off. If I tell you I did not speak to that man for the rest of the trip, I did not say more than 2 words unless I absolutely fucking had to. I avoided him like the plague. I was so fucking mad at him, but not everybody has a strong personality like me. So I reported that to my boss, because not in an attempt to get him in trouble. It was hey, I handled this and I told him to fuck off, but it's me. Do not send this man with anybody else to training, especially if you have a young lady in here that is an apprentice or, you know, new and is scared to say something because she doesn't want to cause problems. Do not send this man with another female to training. That's all I want. I'm not asking him to get in trouble. I'm not asking any of that. I just want you to be aware of the situation so it does not happen to somebody else. I can handle my shit. I will punch him in the fucking face if I need to. Not everybody's like that. So, and that's rare. That is the only, I traveled to trainings with a lot of coworkers, and that only happened one time. But I've always made my lines clear. I've always set my boundaries. And for the most part, guys are respectful of that. they're going to be respectful of that, especially because you are a young, attractive lady. They're going to be probably scared of you for a little while. It takes guys some time to warm up. They're going to be scared of you. They're going to be scared of an HR nightmare or saying something wrong, but there's nothing wrong with boundaries and setting those boundaries. And that is kind of a little off topic from where we were going with the hiring process, but
well, it's so important.
It's something that I think a lot of young women need to know too, is, there's a difference between being an HR nightmare and reporting it every little thing that's a problem and trying to get somebody fired just because you don't like them. And hey, this is an actual issue. This is a problem. And I've tried to solve it, and my methods of solving it have not worked.
Yeah.
My boss actually fired that guy, actually unrelated to that. That was just a nail in the coffin. This particular person showed up to work drunk a lot. He was always working unsafe. He wrecked, he caused a bunch of damage. He drove a dozer through a bay door in the wash bay, failed a drug test, I believe, for alcohol. So he was no star pupil. He was already on his way out. This was just a nail in the coffin. And this was hard for me. This was very hard for me because I have never once wanted to be that person that got somebody fired. I never want to take away somebody's, which I didn't. If that would have been the only instance with this man, he would not have been fired. My boss actually was going to give him that day I came back and I told my boss that from training, he was going to talk to this man and he was going to make this guy, this was going to be his solution. He wasn't even going to take it anywhere besides, you need to go apologize to Melissa and apologize to her boyfriend, who also worked in that shop at the time. I dated him long before we worked together. Do not date coworkers. That is not a green light to date coworkers.
That's not a good solution, guys. Please don't do that.
Don't do that. I dated this man long before I worked with him. But my boss was like, you need to apologize to these two for your actions and we'll call it good. Don't do it again or this is going to be a problem. That same morning, this guy showed up late, showed up drunk, drove a dozer through or what did he do? I think that was the day he drove the dozer through the bay door. He was fired. My boss at the time sat him down and he didn't even get to tell him or bring up the conversation of what happened to me at training. This man was fired for everything else that he did. When my boss was saying, you're fucking shit up, you're showing up drunk, you don't work 40 hours, you don't even work 40 hours a week, what the fuck? And this guy was like, I don't care, what are you going to do, fire me? And my boss was like, yep. I believe that situation was the best way I could handle it, because if I would have gone to HR with that directly, that could have been really bad for him and his future, even though he kind of already fucked up his future himself.
That's kind of him causing him issues, in my opinion. But I don't know the guy. We're giving him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm waiting for a comment on this podcast, and he's gonna be like, "I was never like that."
He knew because he knew what he did, but because I am a very strong personality, and when something like that happens, I will tell someone exactly how I feel, and I will avoid you and loathe you for the rest of the time. So if
I have a problem with you, you know that I have a problem with you. That's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and for the most part, like, I don't really have problems with guys in the shop. I really don't. For the most part, they're respectful, they're nice, they're supportive, they're willing to help. Sometimes you get the guy that's overly willing to help, and you're like, bro, I got this. Let me struggle here, okay, please.